My husband and I moved into a new house a few months ago, and my first project was to create a space where I could house all my plants. Since some of my plants made the move with us, they were in desperate need of an environment where they could thrive, and therefore this was a priority project. Obviously, plants have specific light and temperature needs, and because we have curious cats who like to get into everything, it was important that my plants get their own private area away from any imminent danger. Hence, the making of my indoor garden. Just to give you an idea of what this room looked like when there was nothing in it, here is the space where I planned to build the first set of shelves, and here is all of my stuff that needs a place to live. Clutter is a big pet peeve of mine, which is another reason that this was a priority project. I needed to get everything organized in here, so here we go. These are all the lights that I brought over from my previous indoor garden in our old house. I built a couple shelves in a small part of our basement, which ended up being a good trial run for this project. I learned that the new shelves didn't need to be as deep because the lights don't cover that large of an area. I'm no expert on lights, but the lights that I have are T5 fluorescents that I bought off Amazon, and they get the job done. I just got back from Home Depot, and I am about to start my big project. Here is all my lumber, and of course my biggest fan. My plan is to make 3 shelves, 2 longer ones, and then shorter ones up at the top. I usually sketch a blueprint with a rough plan of what I intend on doing. It rarely goes according to plan, so this is me pretending to be a professional at something I'm really just guessing at. I try my best to be pretty resourceful, and I had all this really nice cedar that had some sentimental value to it, so I wanted to somehow incorporate it. Hindsight is always 20/20, and there are definitely things I would have done differently about this project, but it's functional and I'm pretty happy with the way that it turned out. So the first thing I'm doing is grabbing my favorite power tool, the chop saw, and I'm going to cut all my lumber to length. Because these cedar boards have a tongue and groove design to them, I'm just hammering off the tongued side on the one end so that it sits flush inside. So again, hindsight is 20/20, but in the future, if I were to make something this long, especially something that will be bearing weight, ideally the boards would sit vertically instead of horizontally, and that would provide more stability and prevent the shelves from bowing. Once I have all my boards where I want them to be, I'm just going to go ahead and secure it around the whole perimeter. I just use basic deck screws. If I wanted to make it look pretty and hide the screw heads, I would have maybe taken into consideration the location of where the screws were placed, or I could have used some kind of wood filler to cover them. But the whole point is functionality and not necessarily cosmetics, so this will do. This is the part I wish I would have done differently / correctly. Here I lay out my boards that will be standing upright, and I measure the same distance from the floor and place my angle brackets so that I can put the shelf on the brackets. I I sensed something was wrong at the time of this production, but apparently it wasn't in my wheelhouse to figure out how these are supposed to work. That's when I decided to take a slightly different approach and use my own type of right angle. At first, I secured the back of the shelf to the vertical posts and then realized it would be much easier to turn it over with them detached. So I secured the front and then flipped it over onto the back and re-secured it. Then I created my right angles and secured them to the shelf. My plan was to simply flip it over and place it on top of the previous shelf. I thought it would go as smoothly as the extremely heavy top shelf from our old house. As you can see, it was an awkward flip. It was super heavy, and I filmed it because I knew it would have been funny if something went wrong. But I even surprised myself when it sat right on top of the angle brackets, which were in fact properly placed. This time was not as smooth. Try that again. Success! Now I'll take my little screw eyes and fixate them to the underside of each shelf, which is where the lights will hang. This would have been much easier to do before flipping it right side up, but again, this was a learning process. I made a couple more right angles for the very top lights to hang. Secured a post to each side. And this is pretty much the final product. One of the last things I did was waterproofing the shelves just to protect the lumber, and it also gave it a nice shine. And then last but not least, I hooked up the electricity to a power strip and a timer, and voila! Let there be lights. Oh, but wait, there's more. It was brought to my attention that there is way too much extra space on this other wall that could be more properly utilized. So I simply drilled some holes into the ceiling, hung some heavy-duty chains, built another shelf, added my screw eyes, fixated it to the wall, added some lights, and there you have it, another shelf. And finally, a place where my plants can thrive.